Hello viewers, followers, friends, etc. It's Francis Jeffrey coming to you again from South Bend, Indiana at Ponater Park. This is a park I decided I would do a video at today because of this entire line of mature American elm trees, which is becoming unusual due to the Dutch elm disease. These trees are surviving with Dutch elm disease because these trees are closely watched and treated with something that controls the virus. There used to be millions of American elm trees all throughout the eastern and midwestern United States, but in 1925 the Dutch elm disease got imported to the United States by mistake, which is a virus which is caused by the elm bark beetle and hogs the tree's resources and eventually kills it. This is what Dutch elm disease looks like on infected trees. It has this mossy texture to it. Wow, there's a interesting fine art type photograph. I'll have to get that before leaving today. Now, I wanted to point out that one of the first things I noticed when I got here is that I could very easily get this very interesting looking fine art / nature photograph of these two mature American elm tree trunks with the sign in the background that points both directions towards both tree trunks. That is a very interesting symmetrical / fine art / landscape photograph. It would be a lot more interesting if that car wasn't in the way. So maybe I'll stop here again tomorrow around the same time and try to get that photograph, because that car is a distracting element. As you can see, I parked my car over here intentionally because the last time I was here, which was about a year ago, I noticed that there was an American flag outside this house here, and I wanted to see if there was a way that while I was out here I could photograph my car when I look through the windows and see that flag on the other side. But that's not really something that is possible to do from a good angle, so I'm gonna drop out on trying to obtain that photograph. Hello, sir. Good. I'm doing a YouTube video about these elm trees, and while I'm at it, I also decided that I'm gonna include in the video why it's technically legal to photograph and video record the exteriors of these houses, as long as it's done from public property, because legally speaking it's considered public domain. Thank you. Have a good day. See, this person has almost their entire front porch open to public view. If I were them, I would have put shades or blinds up or something like that, because then it is not legally allowed to video record through that and get detailed shots of this interior. Ooh, there's an interesting skeleton decoration. You see, it's legal to photograph and video record the exteriors of these people's houses without their permission, as long as it's done from the vantage point of public property and you're not doing it for reasons that I've stated in past videos, because it's legally considered public domain, which means that anyone can walk down this street that wants to and look at everything that they can see from public. Now, I also want to state that I have the experience of finding a rare mature American chestnut tree growing out in the woods in East Haddam, Connecticut, and having it reported and verified to the American Chestnut Foundation to be a rare mature American chestnut tree. Ooh, there is a very interesting perspective to photograph that statue with those plants next to it. I'll have to try and get that photograph before leaving as well today. Now, I also like how interesting it is that this house back here has a green front porch, and it is juxtaposed with all of this greenery on this large tree trunk. However, right now is not the right time to take this photograph because of the fact that this tree trunk as well as the porch are mostly in darkness. So my goal, if I decide to go through with it, would be to photograph it at a different time of day and figure out what time of day that would be based on sunlight. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe noon. That is not that interesting of a photograph. Ooh. That is almost an interesting thing to photograph right there, but not quite. That is because I can't get quite a lot of that mature American elm tree in the photo, as well as this little wagon thing. Now, I also want to state that part of the reason as to why you still see plenty of mature American elm trees in certain locations is because the Dutch elm disease did not move as fast through the tree's native growth range as the chestnut blight did with American chestnut trees. The chestnut blight is airborne, so that was why it was able to kill 4.5 billion American chestnut trees in a time period of 40 years. I'm thinking that this is a more interesting perspective to take a photo of that wooden wagon thing from. The American chestnut tree was nearly wiped out by the chestnut blight in the early 20th century, and it was a huge problem because people relied on its hardwood, rot-resistant wood for furniture and building making, as well as making just about every utensil you used in your life. And on top of that, it produced chestnuts by the bushels every fall and winter, which were very good for human consumption as well as the consumption by wildlife. And at the turn of the 19th to 20th century, there was more than 4.5 billion American chestnut trees in the eastern United States, and within a time period of 40 years, 99% of them were killed by this blight that got imported here by mistake. But because Dutch elm disease lives in the root system of trees, and it goes from one root system to the next, it doesn't spread as efficiently, so it's taking a longer time for American elm trees to be killed off by Dutch elm disease. Within the next, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so, that might be an interesting perspective to photograph my car from. I don't know, maybe that time has already come and passed. look at that remaining row of mature American elm trees. These trees used to be regularly planted along street sides because of the way they make a canopy over the street. I guess I should walk over here and show you guys what I mean. Since that red sign is in the way, I might do it in front of the sign instead of behind. There's actually a place that I'm familiar with in Princeton, New Jersey called Washington Road, which is one of the few remaining streets in America which still has mature American elm trees causing a canopy which grows over the street on both sides. This park also documents why South Bend is one of the shittiest, excuse my French, cities in America for photography, because it is mostly a city that is loaded with houses on side streets and not much else, and whenever you find a park here in South Bend, it's just a park that looks like this, with like hardly any hills or anything which add to the depth of field for photography purposes. And it is just, for the most part, very uninteresting looking scenery. Excuse me. All right, well, it's kind of interesting how that bottom leftmost branch of the closest mature American elm tree to where I am extends over the street and then visually touches that oak tree, which is growing in a similar fashion to how elm trees grow. If there weren't so many distracting elements in this scenery, I would certainly take a photo of that phenomenon. Anyway, I think I'm done documenting the mature American elm trees and showing the canopy that they once created, and talking about how the virus that is killing them is not spreading as fast as chestnut blight. Well, actually, I guess I'm not done documenting it, because here are more mature American elm trees. However, it looks like these ones are not faring as well with Dutch elm disease as the ones behind me, which I just video recorded. Yeah, it looks like this one is on the way out. However, it still looks like it's getting treated for it, because it looks like Dutch elm disease was manually removed from this tree somehow. I'm not an arborist, and so I can't explain why that happened, but that's just what it looks like to me. Yep, and here are some branches of another mature American elm tree growing up over the street. Now, this person's property line ends right where this fence starts, which means that up until that point is a public easement where anyone can walk and anyone can photograph and video record anything that they can see, because technically it is public property. If that tree was not in that person's yard, I would be able to get a relatively interesting photo of that person's house from this perspective, with this elm tree causing the branches to grow out like that. So, yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to point out, and that is the end of this video. I'm gonna take a couple of photos now. Bye-bye. Ooh, there's an interesting landscape. That will probably be the first one I get. Once again, signing off. Bye-bye.